What's up, everybody? Welcome into Embrace Debate. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, here every Monday live, 10:30 a.m. here on the the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, powered by Fans First Sports Network. You can follow us on Twitter, Fans First Sports Network. It's a growing network from the friends over at SB Nation that came over and built this at fansfirst_SN. You can follow the Keep Pounding Podcast Network on Twitter as well at KP Pounding _FFSN. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson. Monti Fetti from the 4-Man Rush, Cody Lachney from the Carolina Chronicles in the house with a whole new bed of things to debate this Monday morning before we get you off for your work week. Fellas, how was your Memorial Day weekend?
Good, man. Go ahead, Monti.
Can't complain, man. It was not eventful, brother. It was just hung out, so can't complain, really, man.
Hey, sometimes that's all you need. Just do nothing, you know. Not everything have to be go someplace, do something. That's all I did. I didn't cook out or nothing. I had a bunch of family asking me to cook out. I'm like, nah. Plus, it was raining all weekend, so it was pretty wild. But we got a lot of stuff to chop.
It was an ugly weekend.
Yeah, it was like needed a boat. Like it was crazy. So just stay.
I got a buddy of mine down from Illinois who came to visit. So we've just been chilling. Had some baby back ribs. So I'm well fed. I'm ready to do the thing, man.
Let's get into it. We got Panthers OTAs going on right now. We'll chop into some players are getting attached to the Carolina Panthers out in free agency potentially. So we'll get into that. If you want to participate in the debate, you can always do so either on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio Facebook watch page or at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Just comment in the comment section. We'll be able to get to your comments or questions as we're going. And we can see people starting to file in right now as we get going here on a beautiful Monday, June morning. Let's get into the first debate here, guys. I got into it a couple of folks on my morning show, the rundown Saturday morning. Jalen Gilkey from WFNY News 2, who comes on. He's always badgering me about Panther stuff. He's a Ravens fan. And one of the topics was where should DeAndre Hopkins land? And he was like, I know where he should go. It should be Carolina. And that blew into like a 15-minute debate about why he should be there, why he shouldn't be there. So I thought it'd be a good debate for us. Should the Panthers rethink their decision not to pursue free agent DeAndre Hopkins? And I say rethink because if I'm not mistaken, Scott Fitterer and the coaching staff for the Panthers basically came out, I think the day he got let go, and said that there was no interest in signing DeAndre Hopkins. Should they rethink that decision to pursue him? Should DeAndre Hopkins be a member of the Carolina Panthers this year? Monty, let's start off with you.
I initially when the news came out, I was kind of against it, or not. I don't want to say against it. It wasn't my top priority at the time. I believe that, and I still kind of believe that we need to add another pass rusher or corner. But as time is going on, I've kind of grown on to the idea of bringing DeAndre Hopkins home. I think that you can never have too many weapons, especially when you're talking about a rookie quarterback. And yeah, man, it was like it's just time to bring him home. I think he'd be a great receiver, especially even if if we got him on a short-term deal, and you could allow other young receivers to develop behind him. And yeah, I feel like I don't believe he's going to get the the high free agent ticket price that he's going to ask for. So yeah, I think you definitely should bring him home.
Cody, your thoughts on this? Should the Panthers kick the tires on DeAndre Hopkins?
I mean, I'm a Clemson fan. This is the easiest thing in the world for me. I love me some DeAndre Hopkins, man. And listen, so now that we know Leonard Floyd just signed a 1-year deal with the Buffalo Bills, it really feels like the Carolina Panthers aren't even aggressively trying to pursue another defensive end, and basically the two biggest names left are Jadeveon Clowney and Yannick Ngakoue. And I don't know if those are guys that you would aggressively pursue. Maybe you would try and sign them before the start of training camp. But, I mean, listen, man, we have a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract that you traded up to number 1 for. Surround him with every weapon possible that's what I think that we should do. And I know there were some rumors that potentially DeAndre didn't want another rookie quarterback throwing to him. But I think beggars can't be choosers at this point. Reportedly, a bunch of the other teams that were the big names that were potentially going to sign DeAndre have apparently backed out. I don't know if any of that's true, But if I'm DeAndre, I'm looking at the landscape, and Carolina is just as good of a destination as any other place that they could possibly go right now outside of Kansas City and Buffalo. And frankly, I don't know if either of those two are in the cards for him. So absolutely sign D-Hop, bring him back to the Carolinas. This is the easiest thing in the world, man.
Here's my problem with the whole thing. He hasn't played a full season in like 3 years, 4 years. Now I know last year he was suspended for PEDs, but he was using PEDs to get back on the field because he'd been hurt the past couple years prior. He's 30. We already have a over 30-year-old wide receiver in Adam Thielen. I've been seeing things where unanimous or unknown NFL scouts or coaches or whatever, anonymous, have said that his legs are shot, that he can't run anymore, which is one of the reasons why he got cut. Plus, I don't know what he's going to ask for. Like, I don't want it to be an OBJ situation where basically he's on a 1-year prove-it deal with us and then he has no intentions of staying here. Like, he's just going to leave afterwards, which I feel like would kind of happen here. I would be more interested. And this actually, the debate started with the Panthers don't have a number one wide receiver. And my retort to that was, I don't know if they have a number one wide receiver or not. There's some guys that could step up and be the number one wide receiver potentially, but do we have one in name? No. But I don't know if you necessarily need one to actually win a Super Bowl. Like, who was Pat Mahomes' number one wideout last year? Like, not counting his tight end, not because that's a tight end. Was he? See, and that's what I'm saying. Like, do you necessarily need one, or do you just need like 3 or 4 dudes that go out there and get a catch? And I'd rather have that, you know.
And that's why it doesn't worry me that much, even if these rumors about his legs being shot, which, by the way, I don't believe. Even after the 6-game suspension, he was on track for having 1,000 yards. It's just that offense was bad with Cliff Kingsbury over there in Arizona. And I also think that a lot of these GMs are like trying to lower the price of DeAndre Hopkins right now because he wants more than maybe some other teams can stomach. But the fact that we do have a bunch of young guys at the position already, Terrace Marshall Jr., Jonathan Mingo, DJ Chark, like, you're not having to give DeAndre this crazy workload. You know, it's not like he's the only target that we're going to be pushing the ball to if you were to come here. So that's why it doesn't necessarily worry me that much. And again, I don't know what other player is available right now that makes the Panthers that much better compared to what DeAndre Hopkins would do.
Yeah, I mean, plus a lot of it's wait and see, because the argument against Terrace Marshall that I was getting was that, well, he only had like 600 yards last year or whatever. And I'm like, well, the Panthers weren't throwing the ball. Like, we were running for like 170 yards a game. Like, and then before that, the first 6 games of the year, Terrace Marshall Jr. wasn't playing for some reason. Like, he was buried on the bench after he got drafted by Matt Rule, and then Matt Rule forgot he was on the roster. So it's like, we don't really know what we have like with him. He showed flashes at the end of last year, and he came from that 2019 LSU offense where pretty much every skill position on that offense has pretty much flourished in the NFL for the most part. So let's see what he can do. I think it's Terrace Marshall Jr. I think he could balloon in that. Jonathan Mingo. I'd rather see what we have with these 2 young wideouts that we've drafted the past 2 years than go out and get a 30-year-old wide receiver and expect him to just slot in and be our number one. Like, it just feels like it goes against their plan, you know, like everything they've done up to this point. It doesn't seem to match like what they've done with everything else. So I don't think they'll go after Hopkins, but while we're here, is there another spot that would be what's the best place for him to land? Like in a world where there's no salary cap, there's no restrictions or anything. Where's the one place if he landed, you go, oh, that's going to be trouble?
I'd like to see him in Baltimore, man. I think Baltimore, him and Lamar Jackson. Yeah, him and Lamar Jackson would be crazy. You know, I think him and I think add Odell Beckham, add Zay Flowers, and then DeAndre Hopkins. That's a scary receiver core. And then you have, you know, Mark Andrews as a tight end. That's scary, man.
That's so funny because that was actually my retort on my morning show Saturday. I was like, what about Baltimore? Like, Baltimore hasn't had any wide receivers, and OBJ's coming off of a major leg surgery. Like, he didn't play last year, so you can't really depend on him. Plus, I'll be honest, OBJ might be one of the most overrated wide receivers of our generation. Like, to me, his whole thing is on that one-handed catch. That one-handed catch against the Cowboys. His whole career has been based off that, pretty much, it feels like to me. Like, he's got his money off of that. Has he really been all pro level?
No, I think so. He hasn't.
Yeah,
I mean, it depends on. I mean, he was in a bad situation in Cleveland. And by the way, my answer for DeAndre actually is Cleveland. I
Yeah.
think he had his best years with Deshaun Watson throwing him the football. They have Amari Cooper over there, but when you add DeAndre to that offense, and they got Nick Chubb, I believe they still have Kareem Hunt. So they would have a full arsenal to be able to compete, and that division is now really really strong. With Baltimore Ravens, they're trying to go to a pass happy offense. Everybody knows Joe Burrow is cold. The Mike Tomlin's always going to have the Steelers playing well. So I think probably Cleveland is. I think we're going to end up seeing him sign with Cleveland.
Yeah, or Kansas City somehow. Like I don't even know how Kansas City would have the money to do this, but it just seems like that would be something that they would try to pull off and put him with Mahomes. Yeah. So we'll see if they do that. I thought Cleveland too, for the very reasons you mentioned, Cody, putting them back together with Deshaun Watson, because they played together at Clemson, right? They were on the same.
Yeah.
No, actually,
or
Deshaun.
was he older?
Yeah,
Oh no,
DeAndre was.
Houston.
Yeah, DeAndre was drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both went to Clemson, but they didn't play together at Clemson. They met up in
Houston. Right.
Yeah.
So they still got those Clemson Tiger ties and everything else.
Yeah,
And
man.
that would work in Cleveland, I think. So yeah, I don't think the Panthers are the best spot for DeAndre Hopkins. I can understand people trying to match it together. Panthers got a bunch of cap space; they can absorb it. But again, if you don't follow the Panthers like we do, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense fiscally, like for them to do it at this point. They'd be eating up. I think they have like 23 million in cap space right now. Fitter wants to keep 6 or 7 million off to the side for emergency signings and things mid-season. And I don't know if they want to absorb that whole rest of the amount they have just on DeAndre Hopkins. Like it just doesn't feel like that would go along with the meticulous plan that Frank Wright had put out that got him the job in the first place. So I'm trying to follow what they're doing and ask myself, does it make sense to what they've done so far? And the national media is not really doing that. They're just grabbing a name, grabbing a team, and hey, that looks good when we put them together. Like that's kind of what's going on right now. Welcome to everybody in Embrace Debate on this Monday morning, June the 5th, 2023. Next question coming up, and it's a good one. Who is the most important Panthers defensive player going into the 2023 season? Cody, I'll let you set it off.
Yeah, I'm going J.C. Horn. And I actually just saw today that he said he has to be available. So he already kind of knows the conversation being had around him. The fact that he's been injured 2 years and he's missed a good bit of games. Listen, I think when J.C. Horn is healthy, he is a premier shutdown corner in the NFL. And I think a lot of people in the media would rank a bunch of guys over him. But I think he could be the very best. And we just haven't seen enough of the sample size for him to be able to prove it, right? We all know that the pass rush begins and ends with Brian Burns, but I really do think that being able to shut off an entire half of the field, and with the Ejiro Evero, I'm hoping now that we're going to see him travel a little bit more. Like, let him. So, for example, if we're playing Atlanta, keep him on Kyle Pitts and just, lock him down. And I really do think that in order for our defense to play fast, our defensive secondary is really going to have to be aggressive and really going to show up. A lot of people have questions about Dante Jackson being injured a lot. CJ Henderson, pretty much no one believes in at this point. I mean, we're talking about Rajon Wright, undrafted free agent, as someone that people are wanting to step up. So to me, it begins and ends with J.C. Horn, because we just don't know what else we have, at that position. It doesn't seem like we have a high-level corner like J.C. Horn. So, to me, it's J.C. It's a very important year for him, and I think he's going to be the pivotal piece of this defense.
That's a pretty good one. Monty, what you got? Who's the most important Panthers defensive player coming into the 2023 NFL season?
Yeah, I got to go with Brian Burns. I know it's probably the easier pick. between the two or between the guys on our defense. I think that, when you take Brian Burns off the field, you definitely see and notice that the lack of pass rush that we have. And when he's on the field, I feel like he's now developed and impacts the game on a consistent and regular basis. So yeah, man, I Brian Burns will be my guy. I definitely agree with Cody that J.C. Horn probably will be my second guy there. But I think that just the impact that he makes on the play by play basis. I think that when he's not on the field, that we definitely see the the impact of him not being on the field. And you could also say the same thing with JC, because when Dante feel how you feel about him, he's up and down, he's hot or cold, so I feel like when JC's not on the field, you have a somewhat maybe decent corner with Dante, but other than that, I feel like we have a very thin corner room as well. But I think Brian Burns is the engine that keeps that defense going, and I'm really waiting for them to hurry up and pay him, to see what that contract's going to look like.
Yeah, that's another thing we didn't touch on in terms of salary cap space when it comes to Hopkins. They still got to pay Burns. I'd imagine they want to do it before the season instead of letting him get into the season, and that never works. Whenever a team decides to be like, hey, we're going to let you play this season. We're going to see how you play, and then we'll gauge it after the season's over and pay you then. They always pay more. Always. They always pay more after they let the player have a prove-it deal. And I don't think you want Burns to do that. Go ahead and lock him up now. It's always going to be cheaper now than if you wait till later and do it. Ask Dallas and Dak Prescott, about that. Or, hell, ask Lamar Jackson. Like he's still got his money in the end. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, it's still more than what they wanted to pay him to begin with if they just did it 2 years prior. So hopefully they're not going to wait too long on Burns. I was going to mention Jeremy Chin. I'm really excited. And I think we mentioned this last show. I'm really excited to see what they do with Chin in this defense. If they do what I suspect, and he's going to play this Troy Polamalu role, then he could be the guy that's just disrupting everything at all levels, like all year long. If they're going to use him in that way. It sounds like they are, the way they've kind of described it. They really haven't given a whole lot away in terms of what his role is, but from the little crumbs that we've gotten, it sounds like he's going to kind of play that rover position. That's not really safety. It's not really cornerback or linebacker. It's just like he's just out there. He's just like center field, like just kind of policing everything. And I think that's the way to go with him. So I think he'll have the most opportunity to make an impact defensive wise. So I'm kind of looking at Jeremy Chin. J.C. Horn I thought of as well. I think J.C. Horn could have an all-pro year this year if he stays healthy the whole season. He's top 5 maybe cornerback in the league right now.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. Jeremy Chin worries me because I feel like he's a jack of all trades but a master of none. Because at this point, I mean, this is going to be the last year on his deal before we have to sign him. And we still argue and debate about what position he plays.
Is that because of the coaching staff here before not knowing how to use him? Or
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is like that, but I feel like Avero intends to use him the same way. But I feel like, in the final year of his contract, we still don't know where Jeremy Chin best slots into this defense. They signed Von Bell. They're kind of similar players, that box type of safety. Some people want him to play the linebacker, but I don't know if the coaches really intend to put him there full time. I don't know, man. Jeremy Chin's a bit of a conundrum to me, but I'm excited to see what they do with him.
Yeah, so we definitely need to figure that out. There's a lot of distrust for quarterback C.J. Henderson in the fan gallery right now. This is a prove-it year for him too. They did not give him his 5th-year extension, and I'm very glad they did not, because he does need to prove it. Like, I mean, this is a former top 10 pick, just 2 years in 2020, like 3 years ago. So I mean, let's see what it is with CJ. We might have a diamond in the rough there, but I'm not getting my hopes up too much. Is there a bird in my house? It sounds like there's a bird in my house.
I heard it.
It's like right at my window or something going on. B&B Chirac Vet says we should have got PS2. Patrick Surtain, I think. Didn't he get picked before we got a chance to pick, though? I think. Didn't Miami grab him?
Well, we picked JC, and then we grabbed JC, and then PS2 in the very next pick. Yeah. So.
Oh, so they were both there.
I think that's how it went. I think we were drafted JC. Right.
To be honest,
I don't even care. I would take JC over PS2 all day. I remember me and Monti arguing on Twitter about it before we even drafted him. JC was my number 1 corner. I just think that he's a dog, man. He hasn't even been healthy, and that's really the only knock against him. I think talent for talent, I'm
big
taking
knock.
JC. Yeah, I know. No doubt. But I just think talent for talent, I'm taking JC over Patrick Surtain.
So I got a bonus question here.
I think it's more.
Go ahead.
My bad. I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah, I think I got delay, fellas. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think it's just more about preference between JC and Patrick Surtain, man. I think both have arguments for who's the better corner. I'm a technician. I used to play corner, so I like guys that are more technicians, and I feel like that's who Patrick Surtain is, more of the technician, I feel like he's a better fit in a lot more schemes than JC. That being said, I think JC Horn is an elite talent at corner. So I think it's just all about preference, man.
Did you play high school ball down in the Charlotte area?
In Georgia, yeah, I played in Paulding, East Paulding, the Raiders. That was my high school team.
I was gonna say
yeah.
Georgia's a different animal than than North Carolina.
Oh yes, whole different beast, bro. Whole different beast.
It's a whole different thing. I did see that. I think Huff is playing some big Georgia team like week 1. They're going to play at Memorial Stadium actually.
Yeah,
say Chambers playing somebody from Georgia too. So they're known.
Smooth is a big high school. Yeah. Smooth is a big Georgia high school football fan. You know, he probably can tell you all the top 10 teams in Georgia for high school level. So yeah, I mean, Georgia football is probably up there with like Texas and Florida, in my opinion. You know, those are some of your top tier elite shelf states for football, and Georgia's right up there.
We're just now figuring it out up here in North Carolina that we needed more than 4 classes. Like they're finally going to South Carolina has 5 classes and North Carolina has 4. Like right now, they just voted to move it to a minimum of 7 classes starting with the 2025-26 season. So we're super geeked up here for that. Finally, we will actually get teams that are actually around the same size playing each other instead of big powerhouse teams with like 4,000 kids at the Pop in Charlotte playing like a school with 1,600 kids up here in Kernersville. So again, keep pounding podcast network. Do us a favor. If you're watching this right now on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. Anytime we're live on Monday, you'll get a notification right before we come on so you can get situated and watch it. Along with the other programming from the Keep Pounding Podcast Network. We're going to be on throughout the summer giving you news on the Panthers. On Twitter, you can follow us at KP_FFSN. Follow the Fans First Sports Network as well. They're the ones that power this network. Follow them on Twitter at FansFirst_SN. Bonus question before we get to the main event this morning. It hadn't happened yet, as far as I know. I hadn't looked at my phone since I sat down, but rumors that the Minnesota Vikings are going to release running back Dalvin Cook should the Panthers kick the tires on Dalvin Cook. And this is a little bit of a different situation than DeAndre Hopkins, because with Cook, if he gets cut, that's a little bit more of a manageable, okay, I can see them giving him $6-7 million for a 1-year deal or whatnot and putting him with Miles Sanders in the backfield. That sounds disgusting. Now that I said that out loud. Monti, would you want to possibly bring in Dalvin Cook if he becomes available?
Absolutely. And I said it months ago when it was rumored that he may either be traded or cut, that Dalvin Cook. I mean, and that's the thing. I think we're going to be a power run offense. We're going to be we're going to be a running team this year. And I think there's just no way around it. You got a rookie quarterback. You have a good offensive line. We ran the ball very well last year. I think you upgraded your running back position with Miles Sanders. So why not go get Dalvin Cook? I feel like Dalvin Cook is the better back between the two, and I feel like he's kind of closer to what you were looking for with Christian McCaffrey than Miles Sanders. Not saying that Miles Sanders can't be that back. So yeah, definitely, why not? If we're talking about DeAndre Hopkins, there should be no reason why we're not talking about Dalvin Cook as well. I feel like Dalvin Cook has probably more tread on the tires now left in his career than what we also see with DeAndre Hopkins as well. So yeah, man, having that backfield with Dalvin Cook, Miles Sanders, and then having the weapons that we have now, I feel like we could be a very scary offense in the NFC South.
Well, convince me. Let's go get him, because a whole lot of convincing. But Cody, what are your thoughts here? Dalvin Cook, kick the tires on him for the Panthers?
No, man, not at all. Literally not at all. And let me tell you why, man. It comes down to philosophy. We have seen too many teams time and time again find these late round running backs or undrafted free agents that come into the NFL and start balling. the Panthers
How
never
many of them are
learned
better
their
than Dalvin
lesson.
Cook?
But it doesn't matter though, man. We never learn our lesson. The Panthers have always overpaid at the running back position. Like at one point in time, we had Jay Stu and D'Angelo Williams on the books. Then we made Christian McCaffrey the highest paid running back in the NFL. I just feel like using more free agency dollars on the running back position right now, it's just a little bit redundant when you can still get good production out of guys that don't necessarily have the name of a Dalvin Cook. I would much rather get another wide receiver. I would much rather invest in another defensive end. And you know that we're going to have to pay Brian Burns. So it's like, even if you sign Dalvin Cook, you're probably talking about a 1-year deal anyway. And to me, it's just like, it's only a one-time thing. I just don't agree with it. I fundamentally disagree with using a lot of your dollars on the running back position when so many times it has been proven that these younger, unproven guys can
But
come
we don't
in
know
and
how
they
much.
can do numbers.
How old is Dalvin Cook?
We don't know how much what he's going to be asking for though. Yeah, he's not
All of
old.
them.
He's like 27. So, and we don't know what he's going to be asking for. You know, I feel like we're talking about adding weapons, and that's what we're talking about with DeAndre Hopkins, who's also older and who hasn't played a full season in 2 years. If we're talking about DeAndre Hopkins, there's no reason why we shouldn't be talking about Dalvin Cook. And I feel like Dalvin Cook is more than just a running back. And yeah, I'm sorry, Des, what were you saying?
I was gonna say you're right. He is 27. He'll be 28 August the 10th. So, out of Florida State 2014. So, yeah.
It just seems like a band-aid.
Yeah, I just think.
Yeah, Cody might have convinced me the other way. That was pretty quick too.
And like also the Donovan Peoples is his name, the undrafted free agent. I would like to see what we have in him. You know, I know everybody likes to hate on Chuba Hubbard. I'm not ready to give up on Chuba yet. Just as long as we're not passing him the ball, we should be all right, you know.
I like Chuba, to be honest. Like
I do too.
But that's a form of offense, though. You gotta pass the. But that's the thing. That's a form of offense, and I think that's the thing that we don't have. We don't like Dalvin Cook would immediately come in here and be the best pass catching running back we have. You know, even better than Miles Sanders. So I mean, I think you can't say just don't throw. Yeah, I mean Miles Sanders. If you look back in Philly, he wasn't really the best pass catching back out of the backfield. You know, and then Dalvin is. Like I said, closer to what you want with Christian McCaffrey than what you would have with Miles Sanders. So I mean, I get the running back contract thing. I mean, that's a fair argument. But if we're talking about adding weapons, go get Cook, man.
Yeah.
Why didn't the Vikings resign him?
Well, see, that's the thing. I'm sitting there poking around now, and it's like the Vikings might change their mind. Like they never cut him. And now stories are starting to come out where are the Vikings torn on whether or not to move on from Dalvin Cook. I'm seeing that on NBC Sports right now. He's getting linked to the Dolphins. If he lands in Miami, that offense, ugh.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty.
You have Tyreek Hill at wide receiver, Waddle on the other side. You'd have, didn't they just draft another wide receiver? And you'd have Cook in the backfield. That's the AFC East is turning into an arms race. Like between them, Buffalo, man, it's crazy that New England might be the worst team. Well, they are. They're the worst team in that division as it stands right now, I believe. Even the Jets, you know, with Aaron Rodgers, they got a top 5 defense, and now you got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. They got some pieces too. So, and New England's sitting there with Matt Jones. Actually, you went to about a place. Somebody mentioned it in the comments. A place for Hopkins to land. What about New England?
But why would you want to go there? Like does Matt Jones, is that what he, I don't know.
Well,
I don't even know how much
pay out like that
either.
Yeah. So Vikings have Yanel says Vikings have a history of not keeping top offensive players. White Chocolate Express says can't trust Tua. I'm giving Tua this year because the injuries he had last year were kind of like you can't really stop it from happening. So I mean, this year will be critical though, because if he has a head injury or something this year, you're talking maybe career. Like you're starting to trickle over into Luke Kuechly territory in terms of like really having to think about are you going to keep playing or not. Patriots signed that big tight end from Miami. That's what CJA is saying there. So the main event for today, and it'll be going on throughout the entire month, and this is something that's going to be really cool. You guys can really help us with. We've decided we are going to build a Panthers Mt Rushmore, but the way we're going to build this is going to be in a democratic type manner. So each week, Monti and Cody will each bring one nominee to the table for the three of us to debate. Out of those two, we're going to debate that one versus the other. It'll be majority vote, so whoever gets 2 votes will end up winning and move on to Mount Rushmore. Over the course of this month, you can only nominate a player twice in this situation. So, say, for example, I don't know, Joe Blow gets nominated here in this first segment here, and he gets defeated by Joe Smith or whatever. Joe Smith goes on to Mount Rushmore. Joe Blow can only be nominated one more time in this series as we go. So a little bit of strategy going on in terms of where you want to bring. It's kind of like playing spades a little bit, like where you want to drop some of these nominees. You might not want to throw your big card down right off the bat. You might want to kind of play the field a little bit. And in the end, hopefully we'll have something that's going to be pretty cool. And it'll be we'll kind of dissect it, who really deserves to be on this this Mount Rushmore. So let's go ahead and get this thing popping. We'll try to get this in over the next 10, 12 minutes so you guys can get off to work and everything else on this Monday. Slot number 1, debate for Panthers Mount Rushmore. Who wants to drop their nominee in first in their argument for?
Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and go first with this, man. Look, there's a whole bunch of Panther greats, but only one of them made me love the Carolina Panthers, and that's Cameron Jarrell Newton, man.
Here we go.
Like, we had this debate about, whether or not he would end up being in the Hall of Fame. That's whatever. When you're talking about the Panthers, there is not a player that put the Carolina Panthers on the map like Cam Newton. He made the Carolina Panthers must-watch TV.
Hold on just a second, Cody, because I didn't fully explain. Yanel's is asking, what are the parameters of this Rushmore for the Panthers? Just the best. I probably should explain that before we went into it. It's a little bit of everything. Notoriety, stats, accomplishments. What did they mean to the franchise overall as a whole? Memorable moments. Like it's all of that hodgepodge into one thing. Like it's like the greatest. When you talk about the greatest NBA player of all time debate, where it's like Jordan, LeBron, and I always look at it like who was the greatest at their peak. It's not about who played the longest, who has the biggest numbers. It's who was the greatest at the peak of their career compared to someone else at the peak of their career with all those ingredients added in. And that's how we're going to get to this slot. Sorry, Cody, go ahead.
No, I mean, that's I just think Cam Newton did so much for the Carolina Panthers that a lot of fans don't even truly appreciate. That, we were balling so hard, man, in Cam Newton's prime. And I just, he made it fun. He made it fun for the fans, doing the Sunday giveaway, smiling ear to ear. Cam, he's always said he's like a big child. And, it really puts it into context that these guys are playing a game for a living. And that was never lost on Cam, is that this is a game, and he was going to have fun playing the game. And if you were a Panther fan and you weren't having fun watching Cam having fun, there's something wrong with you, bro. So, I mean, maybe other people could say the other players are more important than Cam, but to me, Cam did so much for this team. He's got to be my first pick.
So here's where it's going to get tricky, because I don't know where mine's going to go with this after the rules we just laid out, because it's not a lock that Cam Newton's getting in here on this first try. We were just talking about first ballot Hall of Famer. He might not be a first ballot Panthers Mount Rushmore guy on Embrace Debate. So Monty, who are you pitting Cameron Jarrell Newton against here in this first battle?
Oh, y'all know it. It's in this is just a testament to how much he was an impact to my fandom as a Panther fan. I have his jersey framed and signed in my apartment here. It's Steve Smith Sr. It's hard to bet. It's hard to bet against the Cam Newton.
Oh no!
It's hard to bet against Cam Newton, man. But hey, we talk about what a player has done for this franchise. We don't even talk about the Carolina Panthers before Cam Newton if it's not Steve Smith. Let's be honest.
No.
We don't talk about. We don't even think about the Carolina Panthers as a franchise before Cam Newton if it's not Steve Smith. Steve Smith arguably, he was the last Triple Crown winner before a Cooper Cup that just went, and that record that he held for like over a decade. So let's just throw that out there. I also feel like when we're talking about just best trash talkers in NFL history. Steve Smith got to be one of the best trash talkers in the sport. And yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, as a kid growing up, the one thing I remember as a Panther fan, it was like, dude, on Sundays, the one thing you could not go without watching is seeing who Steve Smith was going to dunk on or who Steve Smith was going to embarrass, and then let you know that he was going to embarrass. Like, that was the thing. It's like Steve Smith would beat you, turn around, and let you know, well, I'm gonna be here all game. I'm gonna beat you all day. And
That's
yeah, man, I don't think there's any. Oh, dude, it's not a question. So, you know, I think Steve Smith is a dog, man. He's my number one guy, you know, and I think I've said enough there.
I didn't expect this. I should have, but I didn't expect this. So we got a good one here. Now again, I can't repeat what Panther Pickle just said, but if you're watching, you can kind of see what he's got on the screen. He's absolutely right. The game has gone off the rails and slot number one. Now keep in mind, it didn't
take long.
Like I said, keep in mind, one of these guys is going to lose this. They can only be nominated one more time over the next 3 weeks as we fill these slots. So we have to be very careful with what we do here. I'm so worried we're going to leave somebody off that, like, we're going to look back on it and go, how did that happen? Like, how do we leave that guy off the list? You can argue both sides here. The whole peak argument I just had, who had the greatest peak between the two? I mean, Cam had an MVP season.
Yeah.
But Steve Smith was playing at a higher level for a longer period of time in a Panther uniform, was he not? I mean, Steve Smith played from 03 till he left at pretty high level, 2013. Yeah, so I mean, that's a decade. I mean, he was Cam's peak is what, like 3 years, maybe 4 years. Like,
yeah, but man, Steve Smith didn't have the whole world dabbing, bro. I'm telling you, I love some Smitty. I love him, man. But I just think the heights that Cam Newton reached were, they were unparalleled. And look, if you look back at that 2003 team that when they went to the Super Bowl, that was a loaded team, man. Muhsin Muhammad, they had Julius Peppers, Dan Morgan, like they had a squad.
That might be my favorite Panther squad, to be honest.
Cam Newton willed a bunch of who's anybody's at wide receiver to the Super Bowl. Man, he was the one man.
Cody, let's be easy.
There, Superman.
Greg Olsen,
Greg
Olsen, Hall of Fame tight end. I mean, let's. Greg Olsen is a Hall of Fame tight end.
Okay, who else?
And who else?
Jonathan
Stewart finished like eighth, he finished like eighth in rushing yards that year. Like, let's be easy.
Okay, but
Greg Olsen was on that team. I mean,
what wide receivers did he have?
Man.
I mean, I love Ted Ginn, but it's like his best wide receiver was a tight end. That's my entire point, man. Cam elevated an entire offense to another level. Everybody thought that we were going to be terrible after Kelvin Benjamin tore his ACL in practice that year. Panthers are done. Nah, Cam Newton said otherwise, man.
Here, what details saying, is it entertainment or peak performance? Smitty a cut above Cam for being the best longer. It's not just entertainment. Like, it is, again, it's an embodiment of everything. Like, when I'm thinking Mount Rushmore, who are the four guys that exemplify Carolina Panthers keep pounding the franchise? Like, if you want to put four guys out there that say, this is my team, these are the four guys that represent my team, that's what the Mount Rushmore should be. I get a feeling that both these guys are eventually be on there, maybe based on these rules, maybe not, which is kind of crazy. But there's a lot of back and forth going on in the chat about this, because people are utterly confused as to what to do here. Cam had Luke Kuechly, he had TD. I mean, was that a number one defense that year in 2015? They were up there. I know what the number one scoring offense.
I think Denver.
Yeah, I think Denver was number one. You're right. Because I think the Super Bowl is number one offense, number one defense is what it was. Well, CJ's going through the defense. Cam had KK Short, who was all pro.
But
maybe he lifted a trash quarterback room and drugged the team. Jake Delhomme wasn't trash. I mean, his arm fell off, basically, literally, like after 2000, I think it was the 2009 season. His arm just fell off. Like, it literally he could not throw the ball anymore. I've never really seen it happen that way. Because 2008, we went to the NFC Championship game. that was the year double trouble. My boys Jay Stu and D'Angelo Williams both 1,100 yards rushing from scrimmage. So I mean, they were running the ball a lot. But Jake
guys,
had
I'll
some
say
games,
this.
that 4 interception type games. We're like, what is going on here with Jake Delhomme? So go ahead, Monty.
Hey, I'll say this as well. Steve Smith, if we're talking about just performance wise, I think historically he still has one of the best playoff games ever by a receiver against Chicago, in the NFL. So if we're even by talking about production wise, Steve Smith is one of the best receivers to ever play when it comes to playoffs. Like when the playoffs started, Steve Smith was the best player on the field, in his prime. So I love Cam, and Cam arguably would be my second pick. But Steve Smith is number one by walk off, in my opinion.
That's a good point too. There was a point where Steve Smith might have been the best player in the NFL, probably 2005, that Triple Crown year. Cam had an MVP. Smitty had a Triple Crown, which has only been done like twice in 20 years in the league. Ice up, son. I don't think it's been done since Smitty did it. Has it?
Are we going to say that Cam Newton wasn't the best player in the NFL in 2015?
For that year, yeah, absolutely.
Who was better?
No, for 2015, Cam was by far the best player.
Okay, but let's take the Panther bias out. And again, I love me some Smitty. I'm not trying to take nothing away from him. But were there multiple years in a row where he was the best player in the NFL? I mean, over Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, a bunch of great wide receivers.
Years where Cam Newton was the best player. There was not multiple years where Cam Newton was the best player.
No, there wasn't. No, he was the best
player.
Right,
but that's my point. They both have 1 year where they were the best player in the NFL.
I don't know if Smitty just has 05 though. Like he was considered a top 3 wide receiver for a healthy stretch. Like
and that's the thing. I think if we're going to compare the two, Steve Smith was better at his position longer than Cam Newton was as well.
See, that's the thing where it's going to get Cam, because Cam's career is almost like Bo Jackson at this point, where it's all the good stuff's condensed in like a 4-year period. And if you weren't there to see it, I worry that eventually it's going to float away in time. Like we'll remember the big things, but some of the smaller stuff we'll just lose like as time goes on because it happened so compactly. Right. Smitty, we've got a decade worth of like peak level performance. So like it'd be different if he was just like a Josh Norman, where he was like average for most of it. Then he just boom 1 year, like he just has a fantastic year, and like his whole Panther.
Right, but I would say to that the quarterback position is more dependent upon other positions than wide receiver is. If you're Steve Smith, all you got to do is beat the guy in front of you and beat the coverages. A quarterback is in charge of much more of the offense than it is of the wide receiver. You have to have a good offensive line, which Cam almost never had and was still able to overcome most of the times. Never had an elite wide receiver core outside of a couple of years. So as the quarterback is like he's the CEO of the football team. He had much more responsibility as the quarterback than a receiver has.
Quarterback's more important than wide receiver. That's all true. But the question is, who's the most important Panther? Like between the two, like which one out of these two who gets the slot first between Steve Smith and Cam Newton based on how they played as a Carolina Panther? That's the difference between deciding which position was more important, or who had more on their plate, or like who did their position better. Did Cam play his position better in 2015 than Steve Smith did in 2005? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Like Smitty got MVP votes in 05 at wide receiver. Like I don't know.
I'll say this. I say if we're comparing 2015 to I would lean Cam in that regard, because it's hard to debate, even as a Triple Crown winner. It's hard to debate against the MVP, and Cam had 35 touchdowns that year, and he was a freak of nature that year. So if that's the argument, I probably would lean. Yeah, if that was the argument, I would lean Cam. But if we're talking about the totality of their careers here in Carolina, Steve Smith is the better player between the two.
Yeah, kind of. Because Steve Smith, who's more?
Steve Smith was never voted the number one player in the NFL amongst his peers.
That's true too.
Cam Newton was.
That's not true. That's not true. That's
Yes,
not
it
true. Matter of
is.
fact, if you actually go back and look at what was it, the top 100 players, like you literally have a couple receivers saying was when he 2005, what receiver was better than him? There was no receiver better than him in 2005.
But what Cody's saying is like the actual list after it was voted on, like
The
Cam
NFL
was
top
number one.
100.
Yeah, and Smitty
Yeah.
never got that high, even though he might have had
Oh,
wide
you saying he
receivers
was never the number? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, that there was wide receivers saying he should be the number one guy on this list, but Cam was the number one overall player on that list for 2016, voted on by. I've always wondered about that list too, because it always felt like it was something. The way they did it was weird, because they would do it off the year prior, but they would never take into account what was going on with that player going into the season, like if he was hurt or something else going on. So we got to vote, because actually now that I know this was going to go this long, I'll be able to plan it better for next week. We'll probably just start off with this and just go with it. Yeah, the comments, man, the people watching, they're having a hard time with this, trying to figure this out. This was a really good one to start off with. We did not plan this. I did not know who they were going to pick before they picked who they did, and I don't think they talked it over with each other either. So we got a Cam Newton versus Steve Smith slot one debate. Who better to take the first slot than either Cam Newton or Steve Smith? So
right.
Oh man. So you know how this works. Majority rules here. I feel like I'm going to be the deciding vote, and I was hoping it wasn't going to be me. But Monti, let's just who you got here for your vote: Cam Newton or Steve Smith Jr. for slot number one on the Panthers Mt Rushmore?
Agent 89, ice up, son. You know, I'm going with the guy, Steve Smith.
Monti, yeah, I can't really, I don't really have an argument for either one of them, really, but. Cody,
Ace Boogie with the one time, bro. It's super Cam.
So it is.
What are we doing, man?
Look, if y'all are watching this, help me out. Help me, please. If y'all are watching this, because don't put this on me. Don't put this on me, y'all. There's 85 people in here watching this right now. Please don't put this on me. Somebody help me out here. Please, in the comment section, somebody help me.
Everybody in the chat room, in one word, either Cam or Smitty.
Cam or Smitty. So I can kind of
Cam
see
or Smitty. Put them up.
Again,
hey, I'm reading the chat, fellas. Smitty is winning right now. Just throwing that out.
I think Smitty is winning right now. Now keep in mind, if Cam doesn't win this round, that doesn't mean he can't be on the Mount Rushmore. It just means he can only be nominated one more time over the next 3 weeks. I'll be curious to see where Cam's name pops up next time here. Like I said, it's gonna be like spades. It's gonna be like you got the big joker. You're just waiting. You're waiting to throw it out. You don't know when you're gonna throw it out, but you got it. So you just got to wait until it's the right time to throw it out there. And I think both y'all just threw aces out at the same time. Cam, Rookie of the Year, 15 Super Bowl appearance, top 100 player, MVP, broke all quarterback, rushing into U-Rex. See, the problem with this is that I'm the advocate for Cam getting in the Hall of Fame first ballot. Right. I'm the one that's like, look at all these records, look at what he's done. These will never be broken, blah, blah, blah. But when I have to pull it out to Panthers,
I'll raise it.
Go ahead, go ahead, Monti. Help me, please, help me.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Des. But even the Hall of Fame argument, we're talking about will Cam maybe get into the Hall of Fame versus Steve Smith, a bona fide Hall of Fame player. Like, even if that's the argument,
yeah,
it's Steve Smith.
But you say bona fide, like he didn't get in last year. We're hoping that he gets in this year. It's not as easy as you make it sound, man.
I don't think either one of them are going to get first ballot Hall of Fame. With Smitty, just because there's so many wide receivers in front of him, like he's just not going to get it first ballot, even though maybe he deserves it. Cam, I think more Cam's relationship with the media and off-field stuff that just were quirky, because the media votes on this. I don't know if they'll vote him first team or first ballot, but he's going to get in too. I just don't know when it'll be. If I had to choose from the two of them, who's going to get in there first, it's going to be Smitty. Damn. Detail's right. It's close, but I think it's Smitty by a hair. And I feel comfortable with him being the first selection. Like,
so it's probably too late, but on the C3 channel, I put up a poll.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
is Smitty winning?
Yeah, right now Steve got 75, Cam got, but it's moving. Cam's back up to 30. Yeah, Smitty's at 70% right now.
Oh my God. Okay, so yeah, so I think and people are voting. People are voting in here. One for Cam, one for Smitty, one for Smitty, one for Cam. So I mean, it's pretty even in here. It's not even. It's leaning Smitty. But Cam's got plenty of help in terms of this.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Cam's going to get in. I think we're going to have to go Steve Smith. So Steve Smith is going to be our first ballot Panthers Mount Rushmore slot number 1. Steve Smith Jr. Wins it over Cam Newton. Now, again, guys, doesn't mean Cam Newton's eliminated from this. It just means that he can only be nominated one more time. The next time he comes up, though, it's going to be hard times for Cam Newton because it'll be elimination time for him if he don't make it past the next person that he gets nominated against. I have no idea who's going to nominate him. I have no idea when they're going to do it. Next week.
Oh, I'm gonna get Cam Newton in. That's a promise.
I'm worried you're gonna do it next
promise.
week. It's gonna be like Cam versus Luke Kuechly or something. I'm like, oh no, what have we done?
I was gonna say,
Bro, I'm gonna get Cam Newton.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get Cam Newton on this Mount Rushmore come hella high water, bro. I'm telling you.
Panther Pickle saying, call Jay Stu, ask him. Stu is on vacation. I'm actually leaving for vacation as soon as this show is over next Monday. Like literally, the car will be packed as soon as we're done. I'm packing the family up and we're heading down to the beach for a week. Everything will be unplugged, so don't at me like the whole week. So like we are on a break. Skylar Callahan's actually at Panthers OTAs. He actually tweeted out, I think you had retweeted it, Monty, that Bryce Young had put YGM on skates on one of the drills that they had. So for those that are worried about Bryce Young getting hit or touched or anything, sometimes it helps to be smaller. It's harder to grab you. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's a benefit to not be so big where they can't just wrap their arms around you. So we'll see about that. But I think it's Steve Smith. So Steve Smith is going to make it on a 2-1 vote. I'm curious if we're going to get like a unanimous decision or something on one of these, you would think. And I'm wondering how far back we're going to go because I know both you guys are younger than me. I feel like I have to kind of keep the torch burning for like the 03 guys, the Sam Mills and the Lamar Lathans and the Kevin Greens and the guys from 95, 96, you know, Steve Berlines and those guys need to come into consider. Well, maybe not for Mount Rushmore, but they at least need to be mentioned in terms of Panther greats. So this is pretty good. JSU said Cam was nice. Don't get me wrong, but this vote is respectful. Justin Long said this is embarrassing for our fan base. What's embarrassing about Steve Smith making the what? How is Steve Smith making Mount Rushmore first over everybody embarrassing for the fan base? I think most of the fan base would agree that it's probably Smitty. If you paid attention to how they acted when we let him go, clearly it's Steve Smith. So Panther Pickle Cam won't be a Hall of Famer. We're saving that debate. I know we mentioned at the end of every show. That's going to be a fun one. Maybe we do it free for all style, like you guys do it over at C3, Cody, where we let others come in and talk a little bit on that because that's a big topic. Cam won't be a Hall of Famer, so we'll get into that too next week. Any news that comes out from Panthers OTAs, we'll have that there. Might see if Skylar wants to stop by and give us a little news break or whatnot. Cool. See if he wants to do something like that, and we'll get into this slot number 2 Panthers Mount Rushmore debate. I have no idea who these guys are going to pick. You guys can help us vote this on. Steve Smith is the first selection for the Panthers Mount Rushmore. We will be back next week, 10:30 a.m. live here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel. Subscribe to it if you haven't already. YouTube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. You can actually hear the audio of this on the Fans First Sports Network here shortly. Again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, KP_FFSN. You can find the Facebook page the same way. Get all the latest news and notes from the Panthers coming up. For Cody, for Monty, I'm Dez. We're out. Have a great Monday. Embrace debate.
Keep pounding.